Good evening and welcome back to the Conservatarian Exchange on the Liberty Block. We have today co-hosting myself, Steve, Ed M. Ripkin, Dick, and from New Jersey by audio, we have Mike, and we have a special cameo appearance by Laser from across the world. If he wants to say where he is, that's fine.
The Middle East.
The Middle East, from the Middle East. All right, Laser, you haven't been with us for a very long time. Anything you'd like to comment on that you can comment on?
Oh, not off the top of my head, and I don't want to waste the time because it is such a juicy week full of things, hence my being awake at this hour to join.
Well, what's the juiciest?
Oh man, the whole state of Virginia, as far as I'm concerned.
Okay. Yeah, unfortunately, we don't have our Virginian at the moment with us, but if you want to say something about it, I assume we're talking about redistricting.
We're primarily talking about redistricting, and then we're somewhat talking about the new bill that may or may not effectively prove to overwhelmingly be a firearms ban. And then we can talk about, in general, the slippery slope that has become a vertical cliff that Virginia is hurtling down.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's interesting because supposedly it's not what the governor ran on, but in any case.
Oh, do you mean the moderate Spanberger?
Yeah,
A moderate, I
the
hear.
moderate. Okay. So my
She
understanding,
directly opposed it.
yeah, that's what I hear. So they passed the redistricting that potentially gives them 10 out of 11 seats, is my understanding. My understanding is that a judge stayed it within the last hour, for what that's worth. I have no idea. My understanding, I hope I'm wrong, is this puts them in the winning side of the whole redistricting battle across the country. Anybody know if that's true?
Just doing the numbers up here as I was prepping for the show, and based on North Carolina getting, they'll likely end up from 7-7 to 11-3. Texas looks like they got the Supreme Court ruled or put a stay on the judge's decision, so Texas can move forward with theirs. So it looks like they'll be 30-8. If we assume Virginia moves forward with that 10-1, if my count is right here, I'm looking at 149 plus 49 is
198.
198 plus 29 is
227.
227.
Is there?
So somewhere around the 227 red seats, and then the remainder blue, which would say that the Republicans will survive out ahead a little bit. When you look at the pickings, I was listening to an early piece this afternoon. Once again, who was it out there? Newsom from California. The Republicans have done all they can do. We can still get all these seats. And as I look at the counts there, California's 40-12. They could pick up a couple, but I think they have problems with redistricting out there. Michigan, which is not a purple state, it's a blue state. They're 7-6. They could pick up a couple there. Minnesota, I don't understand their breakup. They're 4-4 right now. I don't understand how they vote blue so much, but with the legislature, they could potentially pick up a couple seats. And New York could redistrict and pick up a couple seats. So you still have Florida has 8 Democrat seats. They could, with the gerrymandering they could pick up at least 7 of those. And that leaves Texas with still 8 seats that they could gerrymander, probably another 6 out of those. So then I have 5 purple states: Arizona, Georgia, New Hampshire, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. Right now, that breakup is 29 red, 21 blue. And when you look at the states there, New Hampshire can't do anything. Pennsylvania's 8-9 favor Democrats. Wisconsin 6-2 favor Republicans. Georgia's 9-5 favor Republicans, and it would actually lean red. And Arizona 6-3, and I don't see how they could gerrymander that in any more favor for Democrats. So we're going to be in a state here for a long time that it's a very, very close balance.
Well, number one, I haven't seen the decision that came down an hour ago, Stephen, but my understanding is that the objections to the Virginia redistricting are all of a procedural nature, not with they're not challenges to how the lines themselves are drawn, but rather on how the referendum was done. I can't really comment, or I'm not in a position to comment on those types of challenges, but I'm glad Dick went through that whole history because I don't understand why everybody on our side is so flipped out about what Virginia did. This is what I mean, we got equally flipped out that Indiana didn't do it. We pressed Texas to do it. We've pressed every red state to do it. This is what federalism is, and I mean, nobody is willing to address the underlying problem, which is we're two different countries now. I mean, that's the real problem. I mean, it wouldn't really matter all that much. I mean, it would matter a little bit, but if we were basically all going for the same prize and just had slightly different ways of going about it, we wouldn't be having this kind of war. But we're having a war by other means right now because nobody wants to get into a real war. But I don't understand why everybody on our side, Trump had his tantrum on Truth Social. Um, I don't get
Which
it.
one?
No, about the Virginia redistricting. I mean, I'm not happy about it. I want to see Democrats vanquished everywhere, but I mean, this is,
Well,
elections have consequences, and Republicans need to understand, that they need to fight hard and fight dirty, which is what Spanberger did in order to get elected. She fought dirty. Okay.
so here's my issue with that when we talk about the so-called gerrymandering. If you look at the North Carolina maps and if you look at the Virginia maps prior to this latest redistricting, the districts were relatively condensed. In fact, when Republicans first redrew the North Carolina map for 14 districts, there were only 9 counties that were broken up. If you look at if you look at what the Supreme Court did in North Carolina briefly before all the changes, we had a district that snaked everywhere and ran virtually from the South Carolina border up to the Virginia border, snaking all over the state. If you look at what Virginia just did up in the Northeast, there's a big slot of hard blue right on the D.C. border, right on the Maryland border there with D.C., that they grabbed this chunk of Democrats. And then there's a thin line that stretch out to the state where we grab another Democrat thing, and then this whole great big red section of the state. I mean,
The word gerrymander comes from Elbridge Gerry,
I'm familiar with that.
who was a signer,
Quite familiar with that.
who was a signer of the Declaration of Independence. This is not a new thing. This has been going on since the creation of the Republic and of the Constitution, and this is what state control means. And either we're for state control or we're not for state control.
I don't disagree with you there, but all I'm pointing out is.
Well, I
when
guess my issue
Republicans-
is the House of Representatives is supposed to represent people, not
Yes.
states. And this disenfranchises all the people because, as the saying goes, we no longer pick our representatives, the representatives pick the voters. And I just don't get it.
But the
So-
Constitution specifically grants the state legislatures the power to create the districts.
I would like to point out one thing, though, and it's a shame that Alu is not on today, because if these districts stick in Virginia, mark my word, over the next 4 elections, vote participation will go down. And I predict by 4 elections from now, it'll be down by 1 million from what it was in the last election.
Because
Voters feel totally disenfranchised in those other districts. What's the point in me going out? You've already redrawn districts, so I can't win.
I would agree. As somebody who once voted in New York, there is no point wasting your day if your vote is literally meaningless.
yeah, I don't know.
And
I
I'd
hear
be able
Ed,
to
I
make that
hear
wager
Ed,
with
I hear
anybody
your
here.
argument, but it just worries me that everything is a joke because basically every 2 years they can take whichever voters they want into whichever district they want, right?
Pretty much,
can.
seemingly.
I think that's what is that what the referendum allows them to do? I thought it just divests the bipartisan commission with the power to draw lines and gives it back to the legislature.
No, but what
Well,
you're
no, but his
saying
point
here-
is that if they can redraw the lines anytime they want, they can just go, where do we need these votes today? And then redraw the lines. And well, apparently what's going to stop them?
I think federal law
Constitutionally-
stops them.
But I thought you
Constitutionally-
just said that the states have the power to write the district. So
Correct, but I think federal law says that they have to do it based on the census and that they can only redistrict, I think, once per decade, in like on the 50th year, something like that.
No,
I don't know, so I won't comment here, but I'm not familiar with that.
And is
So-
that federal law or constitution?
I think it's federal law, but Dick is shaking his head, so let's hear what he has to say.
the Constitution specifies that there'll be apportioned according to population, that the government will perform a census every 10 years, but it says nothing to how frequently districts can be redrawn by the state.
That's
Right,
my understanding as well.
I think federal law says something about it.
Well,
So
I
we'll
guess
have to
the
look into
next
that.
question would be, why would that federal law be constitutional if it's the state's powers to district?
That's a fair question.
Yeah, I just listen. Obviously, some of us here were saying that we're not one country for very, very many years,
Yeah.
and there were two solutions: one peaceful, one otherwise. So, but it doesn't look like this country's ever going to split peacefully.
I don't see a federal law there, because if there was a federal law, every one of these states that's been doing redistricting through this period would have been stomped down by the Supreme Court.
Well, no, I think Ed's saying that perhaps it's once per 10 years, and so they're just choosing to do it between two census periods.
Well,
As
Did
opposed
they
to doing
do
it
did they
on the
do it
10th
after
year.
2020?
it has to be done every 10 years because your population has changed, and it requires that the number of citizens for each district be essentially the same.
Well, potentially. I mean, if it's not going to alter your total representation, is there anything that says you have to redistrict?
Yeah, because your population for each seat would not be the same. Population equity standards, Supreme Court has interpreted Constitution require each congressional district within a state contain approximately equal numbers of persons. In 64 ruling Westbury versus Saunders, the court interpreted Article 1, Section 2, and we basically just repeat ourselves there. So that doesn't mean that you have to have 500,000 in all these and 5,000 one person and the other to make it all equal, but it has to be essentially equal.
Does it say anywhere in any law that any district has to be contiguous?
No.
That would be in state laws.
Because technically we could just make a district this block, that block, and this block, right?
Maybe.
I mean, I know they snake around ridiculously. Like our neighborhood in Queens is split. One block is this and one block is that congressionally, which is absolutely ridiculous. But that's how we eked out of AOC's district. If there was a rumor we were going to be in it, and then they moved it a couple blocks.
Let me get back to you that one, but I recall when I ran in 2012, my district at that time, actually, there was an intersection in Dunn, North Carolina, or cross intersection, and my district was on the east and west corners of that, and the adjacent district was on the north and south corners of that. So literally, you had a point at the intersection that was the juncture of it all. One could argue that that was not contiguous.
So at a Google glance, 33 states require it to be contiguous by law. Otherwise, it sort of just seems to be how it's done. But evidently, there are 17 states that do not have it written into anything codified.
But if it's a law, they can change the law.
Yes.
Which,
Well,
if they
unless
have
they-
absolute control, if they have the kind of control to do this, they can do that too.
Right. I'm just saying a lot of these states. Now, here's the problem, as we've said 100,000 times before. Republicans have the same power in as many or more states, and Republicans don't want to win. There's something out there about the SAVE Act, which I think, again, we're not fighting.
Who's we?
I'm sorry, you're correct. The Republicans. It's a good comment because they don't fight. If the Democrats fight to get all their people to vote and they protect that with their lives, but we're not going to fight that either strongly enough. So because we don't want to win, that's the bottom line.
No, that's one of the more embarrassing fights I think we have as a country. I don't think anybody else on the planet realistically thinks it's okay to be voting without any form of ID. And I think Mamdani's tantrum about it, only to then require like 11 points of ID to shovel snow for the city of New York a few weeks later, was cartoonish, old school The Onion level ridiculous. And somehow that seems to have blown over.
Yeah.
Literally required like 6 points of ID to shovel snow. And in the same breath, the guy and
Yep.
howling
Yeah.
about voting.
Oh, well. So now, is anybody up to date on what's going on with the gun thing in Virginia? Because there was a headline that they're banning open carry, but I don't know if that's true at all. Anybody know what's going on?
So I read through it what I could because obviously it affects me. I drive around America a lot and I try to stay very on top of carry laws in the US. I like to open carry. I sometimes concealed carry. When I am open carrying in states where I'm allowed to so open carry, I tend to carry on the larger side. I carry a gun with a 21 round magazine in it. Obviously, in a lot of states, I can't do that. In Virginia, I could do that and I can open carry that. It's never been an issue, and I was doing that. Now, evidently, I will not be able to do that or even carry that gun at all, even if it's concealed, which is unfortunate for me. So I'm gonna have to go get me another gun. Oh no, how terrible! What a tragedy that is. But it seems that they've done what they always do. Instead of saying everything is legal, they just backdoor it into saying everything is illegal. So if it's a center fired pistol or rifle plus X, it's now an assault weapon. For a rifle, it's the same typical BS that doesn't make it an assault weapon, like a pistol grip. Oh, it's automatically an assault weapon now. For a pistol, it's off the top of my head, if I recall correctly, it is a threaded barrel. It is certain optics. It is the standard, seemingly, and this is also question marks because I read through a couple articles on this real quick. If it is designed by standard to hold more than 15 rounds in a magazine, that may define it as an assault weapon now. So, for example, the Glock 17 is an extremely common carry pistol in the United States. It ships with 17 round magazines. So, does that automatically make a whole Glock 17 inherently illegal? Maybe, because it can take 17 round magazines. But theoretically, another problem is basically every single pistol that isn't a revolver can take giant magazines now because they're aftermarket magazines. You can get a 30 round magazine that you can shove into basically any semi automatic pistol in existence because somebody makes it.
But they didn't
So
ban
does
every
that,
semi-automatic pistol, right?
well, they may have, because if in fact it means that any semi automatic pistol that you could shove a larger than 15 round mag into is an assault weapon, well, that's basically all of them. Genuinely, like that's all of them. Because somebody out there is making and marketing gigantic, silly pistol mags that nobody really uses, but you could. They make 100 round drum mags that you could shove into a Glock pistol. It's ridiculous unless you're making a YouTube video. It's useless. It outweighs the gun by 20 pounds, but it exists. And so this is intentionally vaguely worded BS as usual, so that until enough people challenge it and it climbs through every circuit for 5 years until it gets somewhere that maybe gives us an answer, in the meantime, it scares the hell out of everybody. They can throw a bunch of people in prison. They can put a bunch of gun shops out of business. They can take away a lot of people's rights to own guns because, well, sorry, now you have a conviction, so you're banned, and then you've got to fight your way out of that hole. And it's this kind of BS that who knows. So they may have just banned basically everything. It says you're grandfathered in, and that's fine, but you cannot manufacture, purchase, like pawn, trade, sell, whatever. But then the question becomes, okay, well, what if you buy it in another state? What if you bought a new magazine? Well, now the magazine's not grandfathered in. What if you had a 15 round mag in your Glock 17 and now you put a 17 round mag into your Glock magazine? Did you just manufacture an assault weapon by their criteria? Maybe. It had a 15 round mag. It wasn't an assault weapon. Every time I stick a 17 round stick into it, it's an assault weapon. And these are things that nobody knows. And I have a feeling that's extremely intentional because the more vaguely you write these laws, the more people you get to nail with them and then let them fight their way out of that hole, which most people can't do.
On a side note on that, I have to thank my congressman, Pat Harrigan, because he's just apparently introduced a bill for ex-special operations, Green Berets, SEALs, all the special operations troops, to have nationwide concealed carry equivalent to that of former or retired law enforcement. He's retired law enforcement.
I mean, A, good for you. B, screw you. Real jealous if that ever happens. C, I don't think that's ever going to happen. And D, why in the hell wouldn't it happen when we have made it extremely clear that these are literally the most highly trained firearms personnel that we have in the country? We have cops who have to shoot 125 round qual a year, and they can carry a gun on an airplane. But Lord forbid you get a guy off a SWIC team who's been downrange and run 200 missions and killed 300 people from a rooftop. That guy can't be trusted with a gun, surely. But some donut eating chubby guy who works a desk for the NYPD, that guy can carry a gun in California.
I would say, never mind the background investigation difference.
Yeah, exactly.
What's interesting is that the Supreme Court has held that a state can't ban people who move to that state from getting welfare benefits. But as we're talking here, apparently the state can ban people who get carry licenses in a different state from not just carrying in the state, but you can't even transport the weapon through the state.
Right. New Jersey.
I mean, that's been a question forever. That's been driver's license things. I mean,
Well, but the whole reasoning, the Supreme Court case was, I believe the case was Sands v. Roe, Saenz versus Roe, ROE. I forget the year and I forget who wrote the opinion, but they basically said that it violates the right to travel in the country, which I think is interesting because, Laser, you like to bring your gun wherever you go, and these laws impinge upon your right to travel for sure.
they do. Well, I mean, for the most part, safe passage laws get me out of that because now it's a huge pain in the butt because it does mean sometimes when I drive through states, I literally have to go pull into a gas station or a Krispy Kreme 10 miles shy of the state line, get out, pull the gun off my hip, unload it, put it into a locked box, throw it in the bed of my truck, and then get back on the road to like drive through a state.
Well,
It's a huge
in
pain,
New Jersey,
and
I
it's
don't think
unreasonable.
that's even good.
As far as I know, it isn't. As far as I know, that's federal. Safe passage laws are federal. The argument becomes like if you stop for more than you're allowed to stop for gas, you're allowed to stop for a meal. Are you allowed to stop to stay in a hotel for a night? The answer is seemingly nobody knows, and Lord knows I have looked for that answer. Nobody
Mike,
seems to know.
who was that guy that Christie wound up commuting his sentence? Brian something or other, who he was just carrying through New Jersey, and he had it in a lockbox. It was not loaded. What was that guy's name? I forget what it was.
I can't remember it. I seem to remember that story. There was also, I think, a black woman in New Jersey who was pretty well known who did something similar, and she had to fight charges. She was prosecuted at one point. Yeah, New Jersey, not the state you want to try to like.
No, New Jersey is horrible. And that's also part of the problem is for so much of this, it doesn't ultimately matter what the law is because they'll just stick something on your forehead, whether they know it'll stay or not. It gets the cop his arrest. It gets that department or that whatever precinct their quota. It makes everybody happy. The DA knows you're probably going to plea out of it because if they knock it down to a misdemeanor and tell you that you can't come back to the state or you can't carry it for a year, it's a lot better than potentially going to trial and going to prison for a felony. Everybody on that side is going to win. And most people don't have the know-how or the money to fight these things anyway. And so you're kind of just screwed.
Well, this is another example of where the process is the punishment.
Exactly. And it so often is, as we know.
Yeah, the only case I'm coming up with right now is United States v. Miller. And the issue there, though, is more about the fact that it was a sawed-off shotgun, not properly registered. So that's a whole different issue.
Are there any states that you can't drive through with a weapon no matter how it's stored?
I think New Jersey.
Anybody know about that?
About what?
If you can't drive through with a weapon no matter how it's stored.
I wouldn't be surprised if New Jersey has laws like that on the
I
books.
think New Jersey does have that law.
Yeah. Shanine Allen was the one.
I'm thinking that.
Yeah,
she. What about Brian Aiken? Was that the guy's name?
I don't know, but Shanine Allen had a legal concealed carry permit in Pennsylvania. In 2013, she drove into New Jersey with her gun and was stopped for a traffic violation. She told the officer she had the gun and then was arrested and charged.
Was the gun secured the way it's supposed to be secured according to this law, or was the gun in her glove box?
Don't know. The charges were unlawful possession of a firearm, possession of hollow point bullets. Even though her gun was legal in Pennsylvania, New Jersey does not recognize out-of-state carry permits.
The way that this goes, and the way that it says carry permit in that article, assuming that person did their homework, which honestly they probably didn't. If that was a perfectly legal gun for her to carry in Pennsylvania and it was on her hip or in her center console, as soon as she crossed into New Jersey, that became a felony in the state of New Jersey. If that gun was unloaded, locked in a hard-sided container in a place that she could not reach in that vehicle, i.e. in the trunk of a car, or for example, in a compartment that is physically unreachable by any means while you are inside of that vehicle as it sits, that is protected by federal law. And that's what I pull up here. So that's 18 U.S.C. 926A. It is interstate transport of firearms.
Laser, when was that enacted?
July 8th, 1986. It's part of the Firearms Owners Protection Act.
Well, so here's the trick on that, though. You can still be arrested, and that is adjudicated after the arrest at your expense.
I agree.
You get your own lawyer.
I agree. And that's part of the problem. Like I said, the punishment is the process, but it is absolutely federally protected.
While you were talking, Laser, I did a quick search, and the guy's name was Brian Aitken, Brian Aitken, And here's a brief summary of what happened. In 2009, Aitken was moving within New Jersey and had 3 handguns that were unloaded and locked in his trunk. Police discovered them after responding to a 911 call. Parenthetically, that 911 call was made by his mother, who was worried that he was going to kill himself or do something or harm himself. And he was charged with illegal gun possession under New Jersey's gun laws. At trial, the judge did not allow the jury to hear about statutory exceptions for transporting firearms. He was convicted and sentenced to 7 years in prison, even though he argued he was transporting them legally. Governor Christie later commuted his sentence, but it took him forever to commute the
So
sentence.
I just pulled this up also. Before Christie even commuted the sentence, I'm also seeing that the New Jersey Superior Court and the state of New Jersey dismissed 3 illegal possessions of firearm convictions as well. And then that was 2012. 6 years later, he was formally pardoned by Christie, so that all gets wiped.
Yeah.
But this is after the state and the New Jersey Superior Court dismissed it. Because I suppose at some level they had to admit that this is just BS. Because yes,
No, they
he,
didn't.
from what I'm reading and you just read, he's in the right.
They didn't dismiss all of it because he was in prison, and Christie didn't pardon him. He only commuted the sentence. The guy is still a felon, so presumably he still can't own a firearm in New Jersey.
Yeah. And Shanine
I
Allen.
just pulled up an article here from 2021 that says he pardoned him. He uses the word pardon.
Can I tell you, this is not the first time recently I've seen papers not know the difference between a commutation and a pardon, and I don't know which
That
one.
wouldn't surprise me because, again, reporters are
Unbelievable.
idiots. But
I was there. I mean, not physically there, but I mean, I was in New Jersey. It was a commutation. It was not a pardon.
so perhaps that came before the pardon, because I'm seeing this now as 2018, and it uses the word pardon like 11 times in this article. Now, again, they could be wrong.
Because I saw this
But-
happen with a local person who everybody was saying was commuted, and then I actually looked, and you can read the pardon. So I wonder, it's kind of like EMT and paramedic. It's like the press has no clue what
Yeah.
they're talking about,
No, they really don't.
which
They
is
really don't.
which is pretty crazy. But in any case, yeah, the process destroys you because
no,
Okay, so here this is saying that
he was pardoned. He was initially.
this says he was
You-
pardoned for possessing hollow points and for simple assault. I would love to know where they pulled that charge out of.
But he was.
That's what he got pardoned for.
The sentence was commuted in 2010, and Christie gave a full pardon in 2018. And he also
Okay.
he granted a full pardon to Shanine Allen as well. So Christie did a couple things right here and there.
All right, I stand corrected. But
well,
I did
both
remember
were-
the commutation.
yeah. So basically, if you're a gun owner, you're taking your life in your hands by driving to many of these states, which is a really, really scary thing, considering how much I know my people travel.
Yeah. Yeah. I
And
mean,
you-
listen, I mean, I got my firearm license in New Jersey. Haven't bought anything yet. But at some, I'm the type of person where I've learned you just need to learn the do nots. Do not do this. Do not do that. And that's what you have to learn. And you have to know, if you're a firearm owner, that if you are going into another state, that the laws are going to be different. Now, granted, leaving New Jersey, you have to assume you're probably going to be freer.
No, my
But-
problem is that you literally can't travel across the country.
Yeah.
That's a really
Well, that's
big
why I
thing.
brought up that Supreme Court case on welfare benefits.
Yeah. I mean, you literally can't go anywhere because if they can stop you and drive you crazy, even if it's locked up,
Yeah.
it's unbelievable. I mean, what really drives me nuts is when you go to all these places like malls and stores, and there's a sign there which basically says, "Come on in, nobody's protected, kill us all." I think they word that as this is a gun-free zone. And I just, it really does boggle the mind how many places have those signs on them.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's,
come,
The thing is-
it's called an invitation.
yeah,
The
thank you.
thing is, if they don't want guns on the property, they have to display those signs. You can't arrest me for carrying one on a property when you
Brilliant.
don't advise me that I'm not authorized to bring it on.
Right, but it's sad because you go places with your family where there's one of these signs, please come in here and kill people. But anyway,
Right.
let's talk about, since we have no choice, does anybody want to even pretend they know what's going on with Iran? Because every 5 seconds there's a new story out there. According to Trump, I think Iran is gone. It was blown out into outer space. According to Iran won the war, and I think we're up to Trump playing 36 dimensional chess.
Oh, I thought you were going to say holes of golf.
No. I mean, the people who back Trump have gone out of their minds with 5th degree, 6th degree, 7th D. It's just 7D chess, 8D chess, whatever. Does anybody have a clue? He made a ceasefire until they decide they want to make a proposition.
I'm back. Sorry about that.
I don't even
Yeah.
understand how that
Well,
even makes sense.
the claim was he wants the different factions to come together and agree on something. So now that's something new. Now all of a sudden we have a bunch of factions.
Well, actually, I mean, that's what Ed P said we were going to have when the war started. But
Yeah.
if you're winning, you keep the pressure on until they give you an offer. You don't say, okay, we're just not going to bother you until 10 years from now, you give us an offer. And then one minute he goes, but this is not going to last forever. And then another minute they say there's no deadline.
Uh,
Like, literally, what is
You
going on?
know, at this point,
Well,
like
this-
I'm done with this whole ceasefire notion because has any ceasefire ever done any good at this point in recent memory? I don't think so. It just doesn't make any sense to me
I would even ask
at
if
all.
any ceasefire has actually been a ceasefire, because I also don't think
Yeah.
so.
Well, I know somebody was arguing it's funny to have a ceasefire when there's a blockade, which is an act of war. So is that
Right.
really a ceasefire? But I don't understand. I don't understand. Are we letting them build back? Are we building back? Is it even worth it for us to build back if they can use this time so well to build back? I just don't understand what's
Uh,
going on. And then
oh.
obviously the oil market, which
Yeah.
supposedly affects us very directly.
Right.
How can they
Well, I
possibly
got
cope with this?
I have to say one thing in Ed P's favor, which is that there was some messaging coming out of Iran over the weekend that basically said, we're just gonna not surrender. We're not gonna do anything, and we're just gonna let this go on and on until the tide turns back here at home on Trump, and that he'll do something to cut a deal and just end it.
Maybe.
Yes,
So here's some of my
I
question
seem
in
to
that
remember
regard.
that
Iran's
working very well
money,
at Vietnam.
yeah, but also look, there's a bit of a difference here. So one, Iran's money is entirely that oil. They have minimal other exports and they have minimal clientele to whom they can export, especially across the developed world. Iran has one source of wealth. It is oil. We have simply cut that off. We are strangling something like 80% of their entire economy. And this is an economy that's already failing in a country that already doesn't have things like electricity and clean water for millions and millions and millions of people, many of whom are already pretty angry. Can we outlast Iran? Yes, we can. Are people
If
going
we
to cry
wanted
about it?
to.
Well,
Sure.
pausing hostilities does us no good, as far as I can tell. You keep the pressure
I'm
on,
inclined
the
to agree
boot
with
on-
you.
the boot on the neck until they bend to our knee and our will. That's it.
I am inclined to agree with you personally.
So, for my 2 cents worth on that, one of the things that has gone on during this ceasefire is trying to figure out who is in fact in charge. And I think that as of 3 days ago, we can affirmatively say that the IRGC is in charge of the country. Not the Ayatollah, not the president, not the quasi-elected government. It is the IRGC. And the one general made that clear. We're in charge. The military's in charge. It is now a military dictatorship.
Which is exactly what Ed P predicted. But I have a really dumb question. Last time I looked, no armed force is one person. And I find it hard to believe that there's one opinion coming out of the IRGC.
There
There
is
probably
a
isn't.
senior official who has a number of folks who will follow him. And that is not uncommon when you have these transitions with a general will step up to the top. That doesn't mean he stays there. He steps up to the top until he loses enough leadership or enough support, or somebody else gains more support and takes
Or we
over.
blow them up.
Yeah, that too.
Or we weaponize the other side. I just don't
Yeah.
believe that 100% of the IRGC is anything in this kind of a situation. I mean, I just don't know
Well-
what we're doing.
Well, I mean, the problem too is we are entering a stage where this seems to be dragging on. For all of Trump's, we accomplish all our goals and all that kind. This now is starting to drag on, and that's
I agree. Here's what I would like.
Worst thing that can happen to him.
This,
I would like to ask how many times after Pearl Harbor we said, okay, let's not shoot at the Nazis for 3 weeks and check this out. Because I don't think that's ever happened in any war in human history until very recently. If you're in a war, you fight the war until the war ends by one means or another.
Mhm.
When you take these timeouts, it forces wars to drag eternally.
Well, that actually started happening in 1953.
Yeah,
well,
that's right.
I'm not gonna defend what Trump is doing. I'm really pissed off about it, actually. I feel like I've been defending him on this show and in other places for quite some time, and it's really pissing me off that now it just looks like he's delaying. And I think I understand why he's delaying. I think that this is Trump, and it's no different than how he treats Democrats at home. We have been all waiting for Trump to just bulldoze the Democrats get the Republicans behind him, and he can lead them to the promised land and get them to kill the filibuster and bring the Save Act over the finish line and do all sorts of other things to help redo the country. But that's just not Trump. I mean, that's Trump's way of bloviating, and he pretends that that's who he is. But in reality, he always wants to make a deal. He always wants things to be by agreement. He doesn't want, I mean, that's why he's pulled the troops out of Minneapolis and Portland and LA. That's why we still have a government shutdown, which we haven't even talked about on this program in several weeks. He just he doesn't want to defeat his enemies. He wants them to give in and kiss his ring. That's what he wants. And if they're all dead, they can't kiss his ring.
I just have to say this as the pro-Israel side. What he posted on his thing this week about Israel, I found absolutely reprehensible and disgusting. It is prohibited for Israel to attack Lebanon. I just thought, who the living hell are you?
Hmm.
Well, don't you
Yeah,
know?
well, I mean,
Have you listened-
that's pretty typical.
Have
No,
you
that's
listened to Tucker and
that's worse than
Candace?
anybody's done.
Have you listened to Tucker and Candace? Israel controls Trump, don't you know?
Well, they're both
Yeah.
secondary. By the way, Tucker apparently announced that America's religion is Israelism. Did you guys hear that? I heard him say it.
No.
No, I heard him say it. He's talking, I think, with his son or something. Yeah, it's Israelism. So I don't know how both could be true. I found that way of talking to a quote ally. It's typical Trump, but it's outrageous, just absolutely outrageous. So
I mean, of course it is. But you know who else talks to Israel like that? Almost every single premier in Europe. And almost every one of those countries has a military that's pretty heavily supported by Israeli equipment, Israeli technology, Israeli satellites, tanks, anti-aircraft systems, radars, and so on and so forth. And yet they still get on their little pedestals and
well,
shit.
we don't care about them, frankly. Now, did you guys see that Israel is past France and Britain in GDP?
No, but I'm not
Oh.
surprised because have you seen the population trend and demographic trends of France and Britain in the last 10 years? Did you see the article that in the latest from the UK? The UK is now formally spending approximately £2 billion more on welfare a year than they bring in from income tax, meaning that they are literally paying more to have people not work than they are getting from people who work, which is a pretty unbelievable statistic. That's why the UK is a GDP failure and is going to tank.
Yeah.
The UK is insolvent and it's going to fail.
Right. And I don't think anybody would care anything except for they happen to be, quote, nuclear powers, but I don't think anybody takes them that seriously. I think it's good that Trump doesn't take them that seriously, and hopefully he never will.
I think ironically Thatcher had a quote about that.
Boy, oh boy, can you imagine what
Well,
she
did
would
you
be
see Mom
thinking?
Donnie actually quoted used
Yeah.
that quote?
Yeah. Yeah. You put it in
But
the
the bigger part was he said it just takes a socialist to fix the problem.
Right.
That's like the most.
That was
Oh
hysterical.
my God.
Okay, is it true that Obama and Mamdani just broke the Eighth Amendment the other day?
Which
Go
part of
on.
the amendment? Cruel and unusual punishment on the kids?
Yeah, singing Wheels on the Bus. I mean, do you know how much
I'm
trauma
glad
that
I didn't know
inflicts on
this.
children? Yeah, there's a video out there, and I mean, it's great for me as a psychotherapist. It just makes business. But anyway,
I did see it, and
oh
and
God,
I think that's actually a pretty important thing. I mean, I don't think that's a minor story, actually.
okay.
I think I think that the Democrats know that if Mamdani crashes and burns, they're gonna crash and burn. And so they're bringing in every big gun they can to make sure that he succeeds as best that they can help him succeed. That's why I think Obama was there.
He's not the guy I would have picked to sing a child song. I would have picked him to maybe do some other stuff, his soaring rhetoric or whatever other stuff. I thought that was absurd, but that's not an important story, I don't believe. But seriously, I mean, what's happening with oil? We're the end of April. Does anybody have any prediction of where we're going with this?
I
just-
truly don't.
I still think that the U.S. is totally in control of the war, and I don't think that the war is going to boost oil prices. I think not just the long term. I think by the summer, the price of oil is going to be half of what it is now.
I mean,
I mean,
we're 4 or 5 weeks from Memorial Day, which I believe begins the travel summer. Um,
I didn't see where did it close today? Do you know?
I have no
I
idea.
check.
I just know gasoline is ridiculous. Yeah.
Well, gasoline where you're at.
Yeah. And, the fact that he says, Iran gave in on 7 points and Iran said we didn't give on any of the 7 points. Are we looking foolish? Are they looking even more foolish? Does anybody have any sense of what's going on?
Well, my take on that, when you see what the demands that they're making, they want to continue. The IRGC wants to continue their nuclear program. They want to continue to manufacture intercontinental missiles. They want to charge $2 million, or excuse me, $2 a barrel for every barrel of oil transported through the Gulf, through international waters. That's simply unacceptable according with international law.
Okay, so
Not
the
only
dumb,
Dick, the Iranian position is so not just so far away from the American position, but so blind to the realities of the situation that negotiation is useless. I mean, even before you get to the point that they don't follow and abide by any agreement anyway, but their position that they're negotiating as if they're the victors.
well, that's
Yeah,
part
I
of
mean,
what I'm
look, you
saying.
can't rationalize with the irrational, and we know that. And I want to pose this slightly differently because I personally hate the whole concept of international law. I think it's make believe. I think it's largely BS. I think that France and Togo trying to tell Indonesia and Canada how to live their lives is obscene, and I dislike the entire concept. I would frame it this way: Iran is attempting to dictate the entire economies of Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, the United Arab Emirates, and Iraq. So if I'm those countries and Iran says we want $2 or $2 a barrel of oil, or I'm any of the countries that receives oil from any of the aforementioned countries, so far as I'm concerned, that's casus belli. Sorry, we're going to war. Did you just kill our entire economy? I'm going to fight you over that. You just put all of my people at risk. You put my whole country at risk.
I heard that
I'm going to fight you over that.
Qatar has been set back 5 years, according to one story.
Qatar's been set back at least 5 years because they've had to shut down a ton of their refineries. I forget who it was, but somebody just declared force majeure over one of their primary refineries and some of their primary contracts worth billions of dollars. Iraq's economy has suffered enormously. Iraq's economy is like 98% oil. It has been driven into the dirt.
On top of everything you guys are saying, Iran has fired missiles at all these countries.
Right.
That's caused
They
more
have.
war. Even
And yet they're
without-
not
It sure is.
really doing anything.
No, nobody's done anything.
I think that they're not doing anything because Trump said, "I'll handle it." But why don't
Probably.
we get them behind us and let them be boots on the ground if we need boots on the ground?
I think that's what we should do. I think the Saudis have had it out for the Iranis because the Iranians had it out for the Saudis since forever because they're Sunni and Shia and have been at war for a millennium. And I think if Saudi ever wanted a proper excuse to actually go fight, this is it. And I think it's interesting that they haven't personally because Saudi has the money, they have the personnel, they have some of our best equipment, they have our backing, they have a whole lot from us.
And
I don't know.
it's rare that I really, really hope Adam is wrong. That just depressed me.
Why?
If we're the ones holding them back, that's depressing.
What other explanation is there?
I just said I hope you're wrong. I didn't offer another explanation.
Okay.
It's very depressing. I would say they're.
I think
chickens.
there are potentially other explanations. I think one, do any of those countries have the stomach for it? When's the last time Saudi was involved in a hard war? Never.
Yeah.
When's the last time Kuwait was? It did not involve for them. Qatar has not been. The UAE has not been because they've simply been riding in on their gilded unicorns of infinite wealth. I don't think any of these countries have the stomach for war with
Right,
Iran,
which
which
is
even if they could all win, would be
Yet
a
we're
mess.
giving them our very best weapons, which you got to wonder about that too. If they're never going to do anything with them.
I do wonder about that. I also personally think that we should not be giving those countries our best weapons. You know what one of them just did with our best weapons? Became the first ever successful shootout of an F-15, an aircraft that's been in service for 50 years and was 104-0 against every single system the Soviets could throw at it, the Syrians could throw at it, the Iraqis could throw at it. And you know who shot it down? Our own damn airplane given to one of these countries. That's who shot it down. The Kuwaitis. The Kuwaitis went up and shot down a couple F-15s. It's the first F-15 losses in history of the
Was that by
airframe. An
mistake,
airframe.
or why did they? do
Yep.
that?
Misidentification.
Yeah.
Shot down a pair of our F-15s. This plane has been flying over every single war zone since the early 70s. Never lost one ever. Until one of our own airplanes, flown by somebody else, shot it down. Maybe we should be more responsible about who we give these things to.
Yeah.
That's a different conversation.
An interesting story. I want to bring up one really cool story is DOJ is bringing charges against the Southern Poverty Law Center.
Yeah.
This is an interesting story.
They have been apparently financing the KKK, etc.
False flag operations? No, tell me it isn't
Yeah.
so.
This is, I mean, listen, we haven't liked them forever, and they're disgusting for 1,000 reasons. But this is a pretty wild story, isn't it?
Hmm.
It's a
I
pretty
think
wild
wild is
story.
an understatement. We need a stronger word than wild.
Okay, go for it.
I don't have one. Wild just
Laser
doesn't
usually
seem.
does.
Yeah.
What I
I
find,
usually do, but this is pretty out there. If the Southern Law Poverty Center, which spends $100 million a year screaming about this stuff, and their entire homepage is devoted to like being as anti-white, forget anti-white supremacy, sometimes very often just blatantly anti-white in general,
anti-white, anti-Christian, anti anything.
anti every like yeah, anti anything that doesn't win them brownie points with the demographics they're chasing for donors. If they've been taking all that money and
Well,
actually
even some
funneling
of
it
it.
into like Aryan Brotherhood and stuff, or this is one of the craziest stories I've ever
It's
heard.
gonna make for a great movie.
There's a much bigger issue came out late this afternoon on this whole story, though. And that's the fact that there was an investigation started within the FBI during the Biden administration. And when it bubbled up to the top, it was immediately canned and reopened after Trump got in. So the Biden administration shut it down when they knew there was shit there.
Well, that's no surprise that they did that, is there?
No, there's no surprise per se, but the level of depravity and criminal activity in that previous administration.
Well, I think that comes out. I think the
boggles
one
the
good
mind.
thing, the one good thing Tulsi seems to be doing is, every few days you hear another thing that blows the mind compared to the last thing. But yes, the absolute limitlessness of their lawlessness and depravity, I guess, is a good word as well, just totally out of control. And we'll probably never know about all of it. I think what's ironic is, can you imagine if SPLC would be responsible for Charlottesville?
Yeah,
Maybe
I
they
heard somebody
even paid,
mention
Well,
yeah,
Charlottesville.
maybe they even paid Trump to say they find people on both sides. Maybe that was true.
yeah. Well, this
Well,
has me also thinking about J6 and a lot of stuff
Oh
that's
yeah.
gone on that
Well, I mean, because
you
it's a
wonder
Rubicon that once crossed, you have to
this is
question
just
everything.
just the tip of the iceberg, probably, of how much stuff the left
Right. And that's why we'll
has
never know
done.
all. I mean, you look at the Swalwell story, which is not the first of
I,
its
I mean,
kind.
I used to worry about that at Americans for Prosperity, where we had events all the time and we had rallies and everything like that. You start to wonder that somebody doesn't infiltrate and they're acting like one of you, and then they cause a problem or whatever. You absolutely cannot put it past any of these left-wing groups to be
Well,
doing
I have to tell
anything
you,
like,
Liberty Block does tremendous amounts of vetting. So,
yeah.
The reason we
Yeah,
will never know is because of what I said a few minutes ago. Trump doesn't want to defeat the enemy. He wants to get them to kiss his ring. If he could get the Republicans behind him and say we're gonna find out what happened on J6. We're gonna find out what happened with the stolen election. We're gonna find out what happened with Southern Poverty Law Center. All these things, with what Doge was finding out, the fraud in California, the fraud in Minnesota. I mean, these are all things that should, in a normal, healthy political situation, lead to the destruction of the Democrat Party.
Yeah.
But Trump doesn't seem to want the destruction of the Democrat Party. He's more interested in destroying Thomas Massie and Chip Roy than he is in destroying the Democrat Party.
well, that one I've definitely said.
Well, you mentioned the things coming out. There's another one that came out now with the Inspector General and that Lieutenant Colonel, I forget his name here all of a sudden, that brought the charges against Trump. Or the
You're talking about
accusations
Vindman
against
and Carrot, whatever his name is.
Vindman, yes.
Vindman, yeah, and the other guy, yeah.
Yeah. Now it turns out that was entirely made up. And the Inspector General was knowledgeable of that. And they
Yeah.
brought charges anyway so that they could impeach Trump.
Didn't he get like a Congressional Medal of Honor or something, Vindman? I mean, he was like God. He was right next to Avenatti, sitting next to God.
Yeah, he didn't get that medal, but so apparently those two have been referred to the Department of Justice for charges, and Patel, I think, was saying yesterday or day before that charges will be coming in the next few days.
Which that would be very, very interesting. Now I saw a late story that they pulled some subpoenas in the Brennan case, but I'm not sure if that's tactical or if they're backing off of Brennan. I don't know if anybody heard that.
Didn't hear the story.
Because he's somebody
Not
who
either.
probably should, I hate to use the word gallows, but it is the name of a street in Northern Virginia, which, by the way, I don't know why they keep such a name of a street, but anyway. Imagine living, we're living on Gallows Road. What do we do at our free time? We just sort of hang out. I mean, it's just, I don't get it.
Oh,
Oh,
boo,
oh,
You saw
Brennan.
boo.
that street laser? I mean, you pass it all the time. It's a big street. Gallows Road.
On Brennan, they just tied some more information declassified, tied him to who else? Somebody else at the CIA, where they were trafficking the information on the Hunter laptop during the 2020 election. And this was months ahead of the election, that it was communications back and forth within the CIA that we're going to frame, or, we're going to bury this.
Yeah.
So
It's interesting.
Yeah.
They were able to destroy Mike Flynn for nothing, but we can't destroy
Mhm.
Brennan.
well, the
Well,
problem
Yeah.
that
the
we
reason
have
is that
there
the-
is statute of limitations, and you've got to prove the conspiracy now, and they're starting to do it because the Democrats weren't smart enough to
Yeah.
burn all the stuff that they had in the burn bags.
But Nick, even if
I
you
mean,
can't bring it to court action, you can lay out all the evidence for the whole country to see. The issue is the Democrat Party wants to destroy the Republican Party. The
Mhm.
Republican Party
Yeah.
does not want to destroy the Democrat Party. That's
Bingo.
the difference.
Bingo.
Yeah,
We could
and
stop. Well, we could stop the show right now. Bingo.
Yeah.
That's
yeah,
it.
I mean, and they're out there pretty much explicitly telling us that, because I shared with you guys a number of days ago the Jonathan Turley post, and he's talking about James Carville and what they're planning to do with
Right.
packing the court and making DC and Puerto Rico states, and they're just ready to go no holds barred and do
And lie
Do
about it
everything.
in order to get elected before you do.
exactly 100%. So this is where we are, and I don't know if you guys saw it yesterday too. On another note, it was this Senator Chris Murphy basically
Yeah.
was cheering the
Yes.
fact he was cheering the fact that Iranian ships were apparently getting past the blockade, and I think he actually said it was quote unquote awesome.
He said awesome, but he was being sarcastic, Mike.
He was, yes, of course.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, he used the sarcastic emoji, right?
Was
Yeah.
dripping, is oozing out, I'm sure. Yeah. So there were some people I saw accusing him of potential violations of the Hatch Act or the Logan Act.
Some act, but he's a Democrat.
I know.
I mean, I don't know what the magical legal tipping point is, but at some point, if the United States military is actively engaged in a conflict and you are directly, publicly from elected office cheering on an enemy force,
Yeah.
where does that cross the line into outright treason? Because it sure sounds like it to me.
Right. And it's not on the House floor, right?
I mean,
No, it was
Yeah.
a tweet.
Right. He didn't have that
Yeah.
excuse.
yeah.
It's not an
Yeah, like
excuse.
he's just publicly cheering on an active enemy that is actively firing on American assets, military assets, diplomats, allies.
By the way,
At this point, they are rooting for us to lose this war.
Here's an
It's
interesting-
as simple as that.
Yes.
They're more than rooting.
They're out
They're
there every
taking action.
day.
They're taking steps and actions to try and facilitate our losing.
Yeah.
I have a
Well,
question for the lawyers
It's
here.
like I said to Ed during a phone conversation we had earlier this week between phone and text. Democrats cannot allow Trump to settle this problem in the Middle East. Presidents for
No.
nearly 5 decades have sat on their ass and done nothing with this,
Yeah.
as it's destroyed world economy, and they cannot, under any circumstances, allow Trump to have success.
No, you're absolutely right. Because if Trump, by some miracle, actually were to bring some degree of peace to this region after, I don't know, 3 millennia lacking it, there would be pretty much no way to paint him as the villain, because there's almost nothing you could paint on top of that if he actually brought peace to a region that's never, ever been at peace in history. And I agree with you. That win would be infinitely too big. And it would be a very, very, very difficult thing for them to destroy on the back end.
I don't know.
I think at any cost they have to
if
prevent
Trump cured cancer and landed men on Mars, they still say he's a horrible person. So
They will,
They wouldn't give
but
up.
even the average person is a lot harder to dupe if all of a sudden
Yeah.
there is, several years of zero conflict in the Middle East. We're talking about, this is the Middle East. Most countries can't go 5 years without a full tilt civil war. In the last 15 years, we've had civil wars in almost every country except Israel and Saudi Arabia, which is run by a ruthless tyrant who, has killed tens of thousands of people to try to build a several trillion-dollar building that was never going to happen anyway, and he's now canceled. This is not a part of the world that is peaceful, ever.
It's not a part of the world.
I think that win is too big. I'm with Dick here. I think that win is too big, and I think there's almost no price that certain people in Congress wouldn't pay to prevent it from happening, even if it involved being outright treasonous and taking actions to
Well,
prevent America from
it's
succeeding.
automatically treasonous if you want us to lose.
Several
I agree.
famous
I agree with
people, didn't several famous people, including people in Congress, say we really want America to win, but not if Trump gets the credit? They literally said it. better we should lose than him get the credit. I have a
Yeah, and again,
crazy question.
I don't know where that line legally gets crossed into
I know.
being
I
able
have a
to
question
indict
about
someone
the
for
speech
treason.
and debate clause. Does that cover if you tweet from the House floor?
Good question. I would say no.
Maybe because the audience is not the House floor and it's not within the context of something on the record. So
Right.
probably.
Do you think it's
Not in
because
a
it's on the
congressional
record?
record. I don't think it counts.
Interesting. Because nothing to do with audience, because half the time the chamber is empty, but interesting. Now, I wonder if somebody could prove that that's true, because one of these days somebody is going to step over the line with a tweet, and that's what they're going to defend it with.
I think he already did step over the line with that tweet.
And especially if you're tweeting to your colleagues on the House floor.
Well, how can you tweet to your colleagues unless
They
the tweet-
follow you. What do you mean? They're your followers.
Yeah, but I mean, if
You're
you
also
send a
tweeting
tweet-
other people, but
I think Ed is probably right. That would have to be on the record. If it's not on the record, I don't think they could use that.
yeah, but it doesn't say
as
that in the
an
Constitution. I think
excuse.
it'd be interesting. Anyway, I want to share this story because it proves that everybody listens to the show, because I believe this is something that Ed Ripken has been yelling about. The U.S. Department of Education issued a notice of proposed rulemaking to say that if colleges can't prove that people are making more money by going to college, basically, they're going to take away their eligibility to federal loans.
Man, don't make me that happy. That'll be the best thing that's happened in America in my
I
whole lifetime.
believe that's something that's been called for on the show, something to that effect. Am I correct?
I've asked for some sort of different things, but I've asked that the colleges and universities should be mandatory co-obligors on any student loan, and I think that their endowments should be taxed.
Right. Well,
I think the endowment should
they don't
definitely be
want to say
taxed.
that they're not going to admit they listen to the show, but I definitely think this is something you've called for. It's a good step if something like this were ever to happen, even if just to shake it up a little bit.
Yeah, there's no chance.
How could you prove that, though? I mean,
I don't know what the story says here. If a typical graduate of an undergraduate program does not earn as much as a high school graduate, the program will no longer be eligible for federal student loans. Now, obviously, I have no clue in the world how they'd be measuring that. But
right. I mean, and so suppose that 99% of the graduates make more, but one student can show that he didn't.
or the opposite. I mean, I have no idea how they would do the numbers, but I'm assuming somebody has something in mind. But I think
Well, nice idea in theory, but it's
any
never going to
tiny
happen.
form of accountability would be a good thing.
I think it's never going to happen because the second that happened, you know what 5,000 universities in America would do? They would tie up every single court from Honolulu
Well, you
to
don't
Bangor,
have to.
Maine.
Boasberg would throw it out in 10 seconds. But at least it's a shot across the bow, maybe.
No, I don't even think it's that. I think it's a really nice headline in an effort to win some votes. I think the odds of it happening are infinitely less than zero.
Yeah,
I think there
but
are greater
how does
odds that Iran walks up to the U.S. Navy tomorrow and says, "We surrender,"
Okay,
and
but
thank you, Jesus.
Isn't that contradicting what we just said, that we don't fight?
No, I mean, it's nice, but it's also about picking battles you can win. That's basic Sun Tzu.
Education is a fantastic battle to pick.
Yeah, I think
So-
we can win
Try
that. But I just don't think that's the way to win it.
The-
have
the
to-
way
I
to
don't
win this
think that's
one-
a winnable battle.
I do think
Wait,
that
when this
education
one
is one of the
is-
most important places to fight.
What are you
It
saying?
is, but not that particular fight.
What are you saying, Dick?
The way to win this one is get the damn federal government out of it, period.
That is the way to do it. I agree. You simply end federal student loans as of today. That's how you get out
I'm
of it.
not going to disagree, obviously.
And shy of that, you can play around the edges, and that's all you're doing is playing around the edges or making headlines.
Well, if you
I
really
agree.
want
Hey,
to,
Dick, if you took my two proposals, how would that be playing around the edges?
The question is, how can you ever make it happen?
Every university that receives a student loan on behalf of a student must co-sign that loan with the student. Thereby, if the student defaults, the university has to pay the money back. And taxing their endowments, making them pay for all the gains that they've made from raising tuition prices the way they have in the last 40 years, in order to take advantage of all this federal money. Why wouldn't that solve the problem? Why is that just playing
Okay.
around the edges?
So making the universities the co-signer is the same effect of getting the federal government out of it, because now the university's money is what's funding it.
Okay.
no, it's not quite as drastic, obviously.
Well, it is.
So here's also, I'll take this from another side. I think that if you try to force the university to co-sign in order to be eligible for something, I think that's an immediate lawsuit, and they'll probably find 50 grounds. I can only think of 2 or 3 off the top of my head. Now, whether or not that holds up, they're going to tie up this scrapping court for
Brown.
all of eternity.
Federal government doesn't have to
How-
give the loan. The federal government can put whatever restrictions
That-
on the loan that it wants.
And that's my point. However, what they're going to then say is, well, the federal government loans money to other people without these restrictions. Why should we have these restrictions? Why don't they hold all these other various sorts of loans that the federal government's behind
Yeah.
and make everybody else a cosigner? Therefore, it's discriminatory.
No, what they're
But
gonna
as you
say-
just pointed out, I think the federal government, you're right, can choose to does not give loans, and so there's no real way to sue them or come after them if they just say the end.
They'll
I don't
start
think
with
it'll be
the
lawsuits. I
MD.
think you'll see commercial campaigns where they say the Republicans want to stop your kid from going to college.
Right, and they'll
Of
use
course they will.
Administrative
I mean,
Procedures
yeah, we know
Act or
that.
something silly. And we do want to stop them from going to college. I think we should.
I agree.
Listen,
I think
the
that's
education in
naturally
this
happening
country is
anyway.
possibly the most important issue because that's how the Democrats grow their base. They don't have children. That's how they grow their base, by stealing the Republicans' children. But that would require getting government out of all levels of education.
Yes, it
I
would.
agree.
It's yeah, I'd love to see it happen.
Yeah, I know you would.
Yeah, I'm the king of this. This
Right.
is exactly what I
Indoctrination in
want.
schools is the biggest fear of the American parent. You try to raise children to be normal. And I just saw the story out of Hungary that Hungary's protection of minors from LGBTQIMMMOUSE is being ruled unlawful
Yeah.
by the EU. This is what I'm talking
Yeah, they're
about.
ruling it a human rights violation.
So we're
Yeah.
not far from that in America. And that's what I'm saying about education. It's the education system that is pushing all of this kind of stuff, hiding it from the parents, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The whole curriculum is hidden. So I think education would be a fantastic place to fight. Now, supposedly they're getting rid of the Board of Ed, although I haven't heard anything about that in a while.
Yeah, that was a lot of talk early on. I haven't seen anything
And
either.
they have pared it down, but I don't think they can totally kill it.
There are some things that they cannot do to get rid of it. But here's where I get to drive some of your audience away, probably, because I'm going to throw out something that is just really, really vicious. All
Love.
these folks on the left side want all this LGBTQ stuff. We don't know what sex they are. I got a simple solution. Every child of every Democrat at birth is neutered. When they get to whatever age they decide they want to be something, boy, girl, it, cat, dog, you can sew on the parts to make them look like it, and they can pretend all the rest of their life. It will be a self-correcting problem.
Get out.
Something tells me this one's going viral.
Yeah,
No.
this one.
Whoa,
Yeah,
say what you really
self-correcting
mean,
problem,
Dick.
folks.
Yeah. First of all, I think to be fair, we need to include the rest of them that Canadian gal did. Was MMIGQP or something, and then LGBTQ2A plus or something.
Oh yeah, because that in Canada they're very into that. You have to. There's like 11 letters for Indigenous people and something like that. They have a lot of bonus Canadian special letters. I don't know what they
Yeah,
are.
I think we should adopt that.
I've seen a few things from Canada. It's honestly, it's almost difficult to understand what they're saying when they're giving speeches. anymore.
Almost difficult.
It's the honest truth.
No one
I
had
really
a
don't know
clue.
what they're saying.
No one had a clue what they were saying. Right. All right, let's go, guys, quickly. What did we miss? Mike.
Hungry.
Okay,
I-
Mike.
No, okay. Well, you had something in the show notes about Mamdani, and a new tax targeting the city's fleeing wealthy. Yes. That reminds almost of like the New Jersey exit tax. So once people want to leave, you gotta hit them and whack them there too. Pretty fascinating.
Now he can't pass taxes without the state, right?
Certain
I don't
tax-
think so. I think the city can pass city taxes, as far as I know.
Oh,
Oh,
he
there's
can't
a
raise.
property tax.
There's certain taxes that he has to get permission from Albany.
Yes, but there are certain taxes I believe that he doesn't.
Yeah.
I could be wrong here.
Correct. He can
mean,
raise
the-
the property tax with the city council.
The fact that he gets
Right.
out there and literally said, when I ran for mayor, I said I was going to tax the rich. Well, today we're taxing the rich. I mean, just hold on to a
Yeah.
copy of, Marx's book. Like, come on.
So I think New York will pretty much be like the UK. Those stats that were offered up before. They'll be paying more people to not work than work.
Yeah.
Pretty much what we'll be getting. Of course, the other big Mom Donnie story has to do with my beloved New York Mets, who haven't won a game out of their last 12. And it all
I saw that, man. That's
it all
rough.
started when Mom Donnie came and was giving hugs to the Mets. So
Well, I
that
used to
was
know
a
the guy
good-
who was Mr. Met, and he's thankfully not there anymore. So
Yes. And of course, the Mets woes really date back to last year when they were sitting pretty and it looked like they were a cinch to make the playoffs back in like June of last year. And then the pride flag went up. And ever since then, since the pride flag went up at Citi Field, And now coupled with the Mamdani hugs,
Mike,
my Mets are cursed. It is the curse of
Mike,
the
don't take
Mamdani.
this the wrong way,
Not the
but
curse
only a
of the
Mets fan is
Bambino.
like, we're 3 games into the season, we're looking great for the playoffs, and then it was all downhill. It was June. They played 2 months of baseball.
They
It was
had, like-
meaningless. They never had a chance.
They had like a 90% play. Like you go onto like FanGraphs and they tell you what your odds are making the playoffs nowadays. I mean, we're in a very sophisticated society these days. You know,
Yes, but there are also intangibles to take into account. Like for starters, they're the New York Mets. So that's a minus 20 percentage points, and then
Mike,
So it is no longer
Liberty
the curse
Block-
of the Bambino.
Liberty
It is
Block
the
was
curse of the
founded-
Mamdani.
Liberty Block was founded by a Baltimorean. Okay,
Uh-huh.
the original host of the show is a Baltimorean, and the most attended host of the show is named after a Baltimorean.
Yeah.
And us Baltimoreans don't have a lot of mercy on the Mets.
Well, I know there's 1969 and all that. I got it.
No, it's not 1969 and all that. We don't forget so fast. It's only been, what, 60 years? At least 100 years.
Yes. Well, I think I saw Boog Powell, right? The big first baseman,
Yes.
the hulking first baseman of the
Yeah.
1969 Orioles, who claimed if they had played like 9 out of 10, if they played 10 World Series, that the Orioles would have beaten the Mets 9 out of 10.
Oh,
So they didn't want to give
pretty sissy
credit to
stuff.
Tom Seaver and Nolan
That's pretty
Ryan
sissy stuff.
and the rest of them.
that's all right. I remember the last time the Mets almost made it because I was physically present to watch the Royals beat them in Game 5 at Citi Field.
Yes.
Sorry,
Thank you. I
I
appreciate
have it
that.
on
Laser.
video.
Considering
I have it on video.
Considering I live in Flushing and have to drive home every night, I guess I should be quiet.
Yeah. Well, I since I'm on the subject, apparently Juan Soto was interviewed today because he's been on the IL, which, you know, obviously they probably wouldn't have lost 12 in a row without their star, $70 million, whatever he is, player. And he asked if he had spoken to any of his teammates during the losing streak. And he was like, no, I haven't talked to anybody. So there's your team leader. Apparently he has shown no interest in
As a Yankee
trying to
fan,
give
I'm
even a
glad
pep
you
talk,
have him.
a pep talk to
I'm glad you have him. Good riddance.
Unbelievable.
All right, Dick, what you got?
Well, we spoke a little bit last week, I believe, about the Dick Shirley law out there in California. So I had another story from today, yesterday. Got a woman out in California, I might mess up her name, Laura Yorex. And she noticed some problems with voting during COVID. And she was making all these complaints to the state about voting irregularities and basically told, shut up, there is no problem. Our elections are secure. So she had a plan. And she went out and registered her boxer, as in boxer dog, to vote. And her boxer got a ballot. And then she proudly displayed a picture of her boxer with her boxer's ballot. So now the state of California is going out and arresting her and taking her to court for pointing out the problems with their electoral system out there. That's all I had. We got, we can't fix the problems. We got to prosecute the people who point them out.
Yep.
I mean, that is more efficient.
Yeah. Okay, Laser.
I'll bring up Hungary because it's somebody who spent a whole lot of time in Europe and a whole lot of time in Hungary. It's a pretty game-changing election result over there.
We spoke about it a little bit
Orban's-
last week. In your opinion, what happened?
I wasn't here a ton of last week, so in my opinion, as somebody who was there as recently as last year, when all of this was really spooling up and Pisa was gaining a whole lot of traction, and I was around on days where there were huge events in Budapest in support of Peter Magyar, and so Hungary is like everywhere else on the planet, basically, where you have 1 or 2 big cities that vote left and everybody else votes right, because that just seems to be a standard across the entire developed world, at least. Hungary is much of the same. Hungary has pretty much Budapest, one gigantic city. And then it has a couple of college towns / larger cities. There's Szeged in the south. There's Győr in the west. There's Debrecen in the east. That is basically it for cities. Everybody else in Hungary overwhelmingly supports Fidesz, which is the Orange Party, which is Orban's party. They have for all of eternity. They have since the beginning. They mostly, at least as of last year when I left Hungary, very much still did. This whole TISA pushes overwhelmingly young people. Sounds familiar because it's the same thing that's happening by us and everywhere else. And they just galvanize them. Magyar Peter is a whole lot younger than Orban. He's well spoken. He's a good looking dude. He says young people things and they get very excited about it. And he just rallied a whole bunch of people. And the aftershock of this is going to be very, very interesting. It's amazing to me how they still paint him in media as what they're considering a conservative. He is not. He's not a hard leftist like most of the EU. He's left of center, but they still paint him as a conservative, probably to try and soften that whole, oh no, it's really not going to change so much. It is. It's going to change an enormous amount. For starters, like you just said about the Hungarian law about teaching LGBT education to minors was a big thing, and I don't think he's going to push back against the EU on almost anything. I think that the way he's going to work around this is the EU has basically been withholding billions and billions of euro from Hungary that they are contractually and by treaty they owe Hungary, and they've withheld it, and their basis for withholding it has been, well, you're violating human rights with laws like that. As a result, Hungary has been in an not in an ideal economic state for a good number of years now. They are grabbing money from some budgets and trying to move them into other budgets. They run into all kinds of problems, and a lot of that is because the EU has been withholding billions and billions and billions of euro from them. And so I think what Peter Magyar is going to do is basically give into the EU on everything they want. I think he will, because he actually agrees with those things, which I generally don't. And I think that the people who start to get upset about it, he's going to attempt to win over by saying, look, we got the EU to release all of these funds. With things like that, the next $90 billion tranche that they're calling a loan that everybody knows is never, ever, ever going to be paid back to Ukraine is going to go through. I think the chutzpah of giving $90 billion to a non-EU country when there are EU countries where people are struggling to eat food and fill their cars with gas is a massive problem, but it's no different than the problem that's been ongoing for the last 4 years, where the EU is dumping hundreds of billions of euro that it doesn't have and its people desperately need into a war that they are pretending puts them at risk, even though it doesn't and it never has. Because if Putin were going to hit a NATO country, he'd hit a NATO country. There's a 0% chance he hits a NATO country because he knows for a fact that then we have no choice, and he doesn't want that because he's not an idiot. He might not be a good man, but he's not an idiot. The fact that they're painting it as all of this it's just BS. I don't think there's a chance in hell Putin's ever imagined attacking an actual NATO country, because we invoke Article 5 and that'd be the end of him. And I think that for a number of reasons that are for a longer conversation on a different day, that's the play behind infinitely funding a Ukraine war that's now dragged on for 4 years and will ultimately accomplish basically nothing, because the Donbass, whether anybody likes it or not, just isn't going back into Ukrainian hands, at least for many decades. There's simply no way that happens. And I think Magyar is going to bend the knee to the EU in every single way that they want. I think it's going to completely change the face of Hungary. I think this is going to have huge effects and might leave Fico in Poland, in Slovakia, and some of the Polish pushback kind of standing alone, whereas for many, many, many years now, Hungary has been the one thorn in the EU side and the one check and balance on an EU power facade that has run rampant. Oftentimes there's been nothing stopping them from doing some insane things, except Orban, whom I don't always agree with, but he has certainly prevented the EU from doing some pretty awful things and paid a pretty bad price for it. And I think the days of anybody really standing up to the EU are gone. I don't know if Fico has the gall to do it by himself. I don't always agree with him either. And I don't know if Poland does, though. Poland's actually a growing economy, which is very unusual in an EU that's mostly economically suffering. Poland's also growing militarily. They're spending a lot more of their GDP on their military than most others. Poland is actually a successful-ish country. And I wonder if them having had success of their own merit will fortify them to push back against the EU harder in the face of a Hungary that's no longer going to do it. So I'm very curious how the next year or two go within the EU. But I think it potentially changes the face of Europe, because most things in the EU are unanimous votes, and a lot of things could not obtain a unanimous vote because Orban was the one out.
Correctly. And what's also interesting is he has basically said he will arrest Netanyahu.
I saw that.
A big test of the EU's, demanding certain
things. Sure, and that's what I'm saying. I think he's going to bend the knee and do absolutely anything that the EU wants him to do. And that Orban was the one check and balance on the EU, because everybody else just bends the knee and toes the line. And I think without Orban, the EU is now going to do whatever the hell they want. I think we're going to see more violence, more pushback. I think we're going to see a much harder shift toward nationalism over the next couple of years, because now the EU can basically just do anything it wants.
Yeah. Okay, Ed?
I can't believe nobody brought up Ilhan Omar filing an amended financial disclosure statement, reducing her net worth from 300 million down to less than 100,000, somewhere between 18 and 90,000.
I sometimes accidentally add 7 zeros to my checks, so that's not it.
That's not an amended return. That's an admission of fraud on one or the other. I mean, you can't amend down that much. And I mean, either the amended return is fraud or the original return was fraud. it can't be. It has one or the other has to have been fraud. That's not an amendment. And I've seen the news stories about it. I've seen some people incredulous that she would do it, but Democrats are going to keep doing what they can get away with until they get.
Yeah, why shouldn't they?
On the upside, we've seen 3 congressmen step down in the past week,
Yeah.
and another one about to go down.
Which one is about to go down?
What's his face?
Gallego?
The one who just said he's not going to step down. No.
Oh, which guy?
Oh, I just read today. He's like, I'm not stepping down, blah, 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 but he's
Is
going to
that
step down.
Gallego?
No, not Gallego. Shorter last name. Why am I not thinking of it?
I don't know.
Yeah, I can't think of the name off the top of my head right now, but you got another
I know
one.
you're talking about. Yeah.
Well, I think Gutfeld says she's blaming it on the Jew.
Oh, why not?
Because all
I
accounts
saw
are
that.
Jewish.
That was funny.
Because all accounts are Jewish. But I think what's actually kind of interesting is Candace Owens is hiring a Jewish Zionist lawyer, a very outspoken Jewish Zionist lawyer.